Hiking the Continental Divide Trail was only one piece of the Mind Body Soul documentary project. Even though we didn't finish the trail, the hike is over for now, and it's time to move on to the next phase of the journey. On this trip, we will be traveling west to gather different perspectives about the mental, physical, and spiritual benefits of spending time in nature. So we are heading into Glacier National Park today. It's kind of on our way to our first interview, which is in Idaho. And this is going to be a good chance for us to see the park that we were supposed to end the CDT in. I think this might offer a little bit of nice closure for the hike.
That was bizarre. So as I was at this turnout, another fellow came by and he offered me some M&Ms and which I gladly accepted, and we started chatting. And he had previously done the southern half of the PCT, and he had carried 10 pounds of camera equipment. And so I was telling him the story of you two and how we had met earlier and how much camera equipment that you were lugging along. And within 5 minutes, your red car pulls up, Barney steps out and says, "Is that you, Farrell?" And I said, "Why, yes it is. I was just telling this fellow about you too. I was telling him your story." And so we met, and I had you sign my pack. If I have an adventure with someone on the trail or some significant event, I have them sign my pack. And I did this when I through hiked the PCT and the AT in 2019. Yeah, I think we first met in Pie Town, perhaps, at the Toaster House, which is this wonderful, wonderful hostel, decorated on the outside with all these couple dozen old toasters just on top of the fence post there. And later on at another place in Cuba, and I remember going in and cooking some food because in your motel room you had some sort of kitchen that nobody else had. Yeah. So I'm probably about 50 miles away, and I plan on going to the Waterton Monument and touching the border there probably in about 48 hours. As I've been proceeding through Glacier, I'm trying to pre-process what that might feel like. Having done the Appalachian Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail before, I know that this is can be a very emotional thing. I kind of don't want to pre-process too much how it feels, because I've programmed in a couple days coming out from the trail in order to try to come to terms with what it all has meant to me. But I know it's going to be a very emotional event, and it will be the completion of the Triple Crown.
After a surprise interview with Farrell, 48 hours from his completion of the CDT, we drove to Hope, Idaho, to meet Steph Ray, who is a wilderness therapy guide.
When we would first get a student, we wanted to meet them in a phase where we allow for them to kind of ground. It is a culture shock when you're living in a city and then all of a sudden you come out into the wilderness and there's nothing around, and now you are eating on the floor, cooking over a fire, sleeping under the stars, in the rain, getting wet, snow, whatever. And so we wanted to make sure that there's a lot of education on how to take care of yourself. And even in that, there's a lot of therapeutic goodness that can come out of that. Then we move them into the next phase. We start to provide them psychoeducation as to laying down rules and structure. We teach them how to express what they're feeling. We teach a basic format. They're starting to get to know the other kiddos in their group, so they're starting to create safety in their communities. And once when they have built that foundation, then we move them to the next phase, which that's very much where they start to go inward and they look at these different habits and patterns, and they either have the option of being honest with themselves or not. And so it's just a lot of information that they're getting in from their surroundings, not just from the people, but also from the environment and the wilderness. And it's most of the time it is the hardest phase because it is really hard for us to hear that we're hurting people or see that because of our behaviors that we're just setting ourselves up for failure in the future, whether it's I was really lazy tying my knots or I was really lazy tying my corners down and then a windstorm happened and I got rained on, and it's because I didn't put in the effort at first. Just starting to see all those mirrors, and then with professional help and a trained eye from the guides, having those things pointed out and seeing how that's applicable to the world outside of the wilderness and how what they're doing here is an exact pattern of what they do out there. And they just start seeing all of that, which can be really hard and daunting. The metaphors that we gain and that we have while we are in nature is so applicable to how we show up in the front country. It's like, it's honestly how you do one thing is how you do everything.
We have made it to the ocean, and now today we're just hanging out at the beach all day. Tomorrow we're going to meet up with Robin. He is a self-described hermit. He spent 100 days out in the wilderness by himself on a meditation retreat. So I'm really excited to talk to him and kind of see what sort of insights a person gets from spending 100 days alone in the wilderness.
Well, there's what I do for a living and there's what I do. What I do is I'm a Zen hermit monk, but hermits generally have a reputation for being a little crazy, a little weird, which I don't dispute, by the way. I purposely didn't bring anything out there to read. I obviously didn't have any kind of screen at all out there. I allowed myself one distraction and then I forgot it and left it at home. I allowed myself my harmonica. And when I got out there and looked through my baggage and realized it wasn't there, oh, geez. And the immediacy of 100 straight days of meditation is exhausting. God, I remember the end of the first 2 weeks of writing my journal and writing down day 14, and my first comment was, oh my God, I can't believe this is day 14. By day 14, I felt like I'd been out there for years, you know? And part of it was the suffering, but a lot of it was just there was no distractions. So I was living every single second, and time just slows down. I stopped worrying about anything, about having to get anything done. You can probably guess by the way that I talk, this kind of pressured talk. I'm not much of a laid-back guy, But out there, I got so laid back. I mean, I just couldn't worry about anything because time was dragging so slowly. And by the end of it, I loved that. I had so much emotional ability out there. It means that your emotions are always close to the surface, that I could be moved to tears by things like a flowering tree. By the time I left, a flowering tree was so beautiful that I just stood there, and it was too beautiful for words. And that all receded as I came back into the world and got kind of numb again. But while I was out there, I just received a kind of a joy that wasn't even a joy. It's just more of a kind of a hum of just the wonderfulness of that flowering tree, or whatever it might be.
We had a great conversation with Robin that lasted over 3 hours. After this, we're heading down the West Coast for our next interview in Los Angeles.